Witness is Detective Chad Gish.
All right, bring in Detective Gish. Will the defense stipulate that Detective Gish is an expert in digital forensics?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, it's been stipulated, so you will not, therefore the state does not have to qualify him and ask him a lot of questions that would qualify him. He will be testifying as an expert in digital forensics, all right? I didn't think he was going to bring all that material in here. That scares me.
Need to work out.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you.
What? Okay, well, we have another glitch with our brand new system. It's not recording. We're gonna need Mr. Como. Never mind. All right.
Detective Gish, could you please state your full name for the record?
First name Chad and last name Gish, G-I-S-H.
Where are you employed?
Metro Nashville Police Department.
What is your position with the Metro Nashville Police Department?
I'm a detective in the Criminal Investigative Division, and then the unit within that is called the Surveillance and Investigative Support Unit.
And what does the Surveillance and Investigative Support Unit do at the police department?
I guess the easiest thing to say is that we deal with technology, and I'm tasked with being a computer forensic scientist when it entails evidence relating to digital forensics, such as cell phones and cameras and computers and whatnot.
How long have you been in that position?
I've been on the police department 18 years, and I've been working in the surveillance unit now with the digital forensics for the past 11 years.
And, Your Honor, if I may pass this witness an item.
All right.
Detective Gish, could you generally describe how many computers and phones and other electronic devices have you analyzed over your time in the unit?
Thousands, probably close to 1,000 different cases over the last decade, 11 years. In those thousands, every now and again we get a case that has one device attached to it, but most cases have multiple devices or multiple phones or multiple computers. So I would estimate probably 1,000 cases regarding homicide, armed robbery, terrorism, child pornography, adult rape, child rape, robbery, even internal cases for the police department. I handle the investigations for those digitally. And I would estimate 5,000 or 6,000 devices.
And the document that I handed you, do you recognize that?
This is my resume.
And how many pages is your resume?
It's quite a few.
Which I don't know if you were in the courtroom, but the defense has agreed to stipulate that you are an expert in computer forensic analysis and mobile device forensic analysis. Your Honor, at this time I would ask that Detective Gish's resume be made an exhibit.
All right, that's fine.
Which I believe is number 26.
26.
Detective Gish, have you testified as an expert previously?
I have.
Could you explain, how did you initially become involved in this case?
As I said, we're a support unit, so we assist the detectives with technology. So if there's technology attached as an evidence or something, they bring it to us and we use it and we analyze it and conduct these examinations. But on July the 1st, 2013, I met with Detective Jason Mayo, who is a detective in our sex crimes unit. He's a seasoned detective there, been there for quite a few years. And he asked that I assist him with an investigation. So he came to our lab, our office, our digital laboratory, and he briefed me on this investigation that he was working, the one that we're here about this week. And he had provided me with some surveillance video of Vanderbilt University, and specifically it was Gillette Hall at Vanderbilt University. And he supplied me with several digital items, such as phones and some computers that he had seized pursuant to a search warrant. He asked for my assistance on that, and what we do is, at that point, I started investigating the case digitally for Detective Mayo. Before I was in the surveillance unit and dealing with all the electronic crimes, I was attached to a major crimes unit in the police department named armed robbery. So I dealt with many, many high-profile cases, many really important personal crimes cases. So I knew where to start on this. And it was July the 1st that I got the video from him from Gillette Hall. And with my investigative sense, I started reviewing the video first, that I needed to create a timeline, so to speak, to find out and determine what I needed to pull off of these digital devices if there was anything there. And let me remind you, or the court, that when we're dealing with digital devices, we're not just dealing with one gun that's recovered from a crime scene, or we're not dealing with a stack of papers that's recovered from an embezzlement crime. These computers and these phones can have hundreds of thousands of entries, thank you, of data on them. So it was very, very crucial that I pull and create a timeline so I know what I'm looking for. We're dealing with hundreds of thousands of text messages. So even before I got started with analyzing the computers and cell phones that were turned over by Detective Mayo, I started looking at the surveillance video. I saw around a discussion with some other men that were standing there, and then went over to the vehicle a few minutes later. This was about I would say 2:26 or 2:27 in the morning. And it was a male white, and he picked up a female white out of the front seat of this car and carried her into, I guess you would say, the foyer area of this dormitory. I started following the video at that point, conducting the timeline, so I had a good starting point right there at about 2:25 in the morning. I started following the video even further and saw where she was carried upon a elevator.
Your Honor, I hate to interrupt, but I believe all this is cumulative video. We've heard commentary on Detective Harville. I believe this is an expert, Mr. Gish is, his job is forensics. Pulling the surveillance video is not part of what he did. And I don't know that this has anything to do with pulling what he pulled off of a phone or a laptop or any other device. So I object to it being cumulative and just a restatement of what Mr. Harville was saying yesterday.
Response?
Your Honor, my question to Detective Gish was, how did he first become involved? What were the first steps? And what he is testifying to is what he did initially. He was describing how he was establishing the timeline that he was going to utilize when he was analyzing all of the devices that were provided to him by Detective Mayo.
But providing summaries of what he viewed on surveillance video is not relevant and is cumulative. If he wants to tell us about setting up a timeline, that's one thing, but giving us commentary on each.
Well, I understand both sides on this particular issue, and let me just try to put some parameters on it. Yes, you can give a timeline, Detective Gish, but in terms of all the detailed testimony with regard to what happened, let's kind of stay away from that, because you are going to get into another level of detail, which is where your expertise lies.
I understand.
Okay. All right?
Sure.
Detective Gish, could you describe what the time frame or timeline that you were able to identify related to this incident and how you identified that timeline?
Yes. At the end of the video, or I say the timeline, when I see 4 individuals and this woman being carried into a room. She's non-responsive. So I see her carried into the room, and this is about 2:37. I think it's 2:37 and a few seconds after that in the morning, and this is again on the 23rd. I watch the surveillance video. I see one of the individuals come out at about 3:05, and then all of the individuals come out of this room by at least 3:11 in the morning. So at that point, I had this great timeline to work with and to investigate these digital items, such as the cell phones and the computers that we're going to discuss.
And specifically, did you at any time analyze an iPhone that belonged to Brandon Vandenburg?
I did.
And Your Honor, at this time, I was going to ask if the witness could be handed previously entered exhibit number 14. Detective Gish, you're about to be handed an item. If you can take a look at it and let me know if you recognize it.
Yes, this is Brandon Vandenburg's iPhone.
And is that a device that you analyzed?
It is.
And could you explain what type of analysis you performed on that iPhone?
Yeah, I did a digital extraction, a forensic extraction on this device with a forensic platform that's called Oxygen. There's several forensic platforms that we can use in the police department. One of them's named Oxygen. There's Celebrite. There's Black Bag. There's XRY. But I used Oxygen at the time because just in my experience, it did the best job with extracting the data from these phones.
And what is the extraction? Can you explain what you mean by that?
Right. When we get a phone in, this here, what we're looking at, that's the original evidence. So we wouldn't want to do our analysis from the original evidence because this is the evidence. What the extraction does, the forensic extraction, is we can take the phone and we can connect it to the forensic software. And the forensic software will extract all of the data on this telephone and it will put it in file structure format where we can go back into this Oxygen platform and start analyzing the data. So as soon as we plug the phone into Oxygen, we get an extraction of the phone, get all of the data kind of copied, if you will, from this phone to the examination machine. The original phone, that's the evidence, is sealed back into the property room bag, and then it's placed into evidence and we work off of this extracted copy.
And at the time that you are analyzing the device, which again, this is when you're initially contacted about it, what, if anything, did you find related to the timeline of the events?
Well, when I first started it, from viewing the surveillance video, I knew from the timeline that being Vandenburg's phone, and I had identified him through documents through the investigation, was for pictures and videos that would be allocated. I did not find any allocated pictures or videos. But through the timeline that I had developed with the individuals being in the room with this female at the time, I found evidence of several references to rape. I found evidence of phone calls. One phone call was made to a person named Joey Quizno while they were in the room, and it was 1 minute and 11 seconds long. I found some internet history that was very disturbing, and I also found references during this time frame of evidence referencing FaceTime. And FaceTime, for lack of a better term, I guess, is kind of a phone call, but it's a video phone call. So if I'm put on FaceTime on my iPhone, and FaceTime is proprietary to Apple. Apple owns FaceTime. So if you have an iPhone, I could call my wife right now on the phone, and instead of calling her with audio, I could actually use the camera in my phone and FaceTime her, which would be a video call. So we could look at each other on the phone while we were speaking to one another. And that was very concerning to me after knowing that these 4 individuals was in this room. So those are the things that I found within the investigation right off the bat on Vandenburg's phone.
Did you locate, I think you referred to it as you didn't find any allocated videos or photos. Can you describe what you mean by allocated?
Right. So files are classified really in 2 different types. We all think that a file is active. And I'm going to use a picture for lack of a better file, because we all know what a picture is. But I can take a picture with my iPhone, and that picture is stored at a default location within this device. It's stored basically in the media folder. Now, until I delete that photo, we call that an allocated. It's allocated. We can access that photo. When I delete that photo, it's a misnomer to think that once something is deleted off a phone, it's kind of like erased and gone forever, because that's really not what happens. The phone, the deleted file, once I delete this picture, it lays down into the same clusters that it was allocated with. And let me explain that. I'm going to use a metaphor. And when you think about a hard drive or the storage on this phone that saves all of the files, think about a hard drive or a data chip is this big checkerboard, huge checkerboard. And it's got these millions of squares on this checkerboard. And all of these squares hold a certain amount of data. When I take a picture, if I was to take a picture in the courtroom now, the system, the operating system on the phone itself, will see what squares are available that are not in use, and it will save that picture to the certain number of squares it needs depending on how big that file is. So it will save it, let's just say, in squares, they're called clusters. We'll say that it's saved in clusters 10 through 15. Now, that file is saved in clusters 10 through 15, and there's a file marker written, so whenever I go to pull up that file, the iPhone knows what clusters to pull that up. When I delete that file still lays in those same clusters, but it's deleted. So an allocated file is a file that is active and can be accessed by the user or the system. And an unallocated file is a file that can still be on the clusters, those little squares that we talked about, but it can't be accessed by the user any longer.
Did you find any other evidence that was related to the lack of videos or photos in the phone?
Yeah. Of course, looking at the surveillance video was important because it appeared that Vandenburg was taking pictures, laughing and cutting up out in the hallway with this victim. It also appeared that Brandon Banks was taking pictures outside in the hallway. So I was assuming there would be pictures on the telephone. So the next thing part of my investigation concerning Vandenburg's phone was to identify if I could figure out if those pictures had been deleted. And what I ended up doing was going to look at the last picture that was saved before 6:23 at 2:30 in the morning. And then I went to look to see what picture was saved last after 6/23, 2013 at 3:30 in the morning. And what I found was a big gap of missing images right there. And I say big gap of missing images, and how did I know that? Because whenever you take a picture with a phone, it names those files in sequential order. It starts out and it will name them IMG_0001. That's the first picture that's taken. The second picture that's taken would be IMG_0002, so forth and so on. So when I went to look to see if there was a gap, I did see that one image was taken on this phone before the incident. The next allocated active image was after the incident, and there was a gap of data missing. There was a gap of images or videos missing right there. So I knew that images at that point had been taken in this time frame and that they'd been deleted off of that phone.
Detective Gish, I'm going to hand you a document that is 3 pages. It has previously been marked A through C, and defense counsel's already seen a copy of this. Can you take a look at that and let me know if you recognize it?
Yes, I do.
And what is that 3-page document?
This 3 pages is an internet history that I recovered off of Brandon Vandenburg's phone. In fact, the first internet history record says, can police retrieve deleted picture messages? And this is part of the internet history of the 5 things that I found on the initial investigation around the timeline of that phone. So I did find internet history records that I think I said it was disturbing, important to this case, and that are these.
And Your Honor, at this time, I would ask that the 3-page document be admitted into evidence as the next numbered exhibit, which I believe is
27.
Yes, Your Honor. A, B, and C, and I would ask permission to publish this to the jury.
All right, do you have it available? You do.
Yes. Detective Gish, could you describe what's shown on the screen?
Yes, this is internet history, and internet history is stored in a database in the phone. So think about this database, think about it like an Excel spreadsheet, if you will. And each time you go to, if I was to use my phone now and go to ESPN, it would create one row of internet history in my database. And then I went to, let's say, Sears. It would create another row. And then I went to Fox News. It would create another row. Now, the interesting thing is we can always hit the back button on our computer or our telephone, and it knows where we were and it knows where we've been. It's pulling that from this internet history. So, several different references to the site visit are listed in an internet history. And the first one right there says title. That's the title of the web search on the Google server that was conducted. And we see it says, can police retrieve deleted picture messages? It also tells us it's a Google search. The URL there is a Universal Resource Locator, the acronym for that. And if you look closely, and you can also see the URL up in the gray area, if you look closely, you'll see it says www.google.com/search?Q. And what that $Q means is that's a personal query. So we see, can police retrieve deleted picture messages, with a plus sign between each one of the words. That is a space. That plus represents a space, because computers can't use spaces. They have to use some type of character as a placeholder. It uses a plus. So just from looking at this search query, I know for a fact that that is a user entered term. If you go down, there's two timestamps. We see the last visited time in UTC, and that time is 6/27 of 2013 at 2:45 a.m. And then we see the second timestamp, and this is the one that we're concerned with, because this is the time that it occurred. And I'll explain that in just a second. But we see that that is last visit time in Central Daylight Time. And we see that it is 6/26/2013 at 9:45 p.m.
And Detective Gish, I'm going to move on to page 2, which is marked as 27B. Could you describe what is shown here?
Right. The first entry there on the left, it says title, and then we go over and we can see the title, and this would be the title of the web page. So after the Google search was completed, this would be the first page that was accessed of all of the suggestions that came up by Google. So the first page that was accessed was from a site, probably a news site it looks like, cleveland.com, and it says, police mine deleted text from your cell phone. The second thing there is the URL again. That's the address of the internet, or the network address of where that article is located on the internet. And then we see our two date stamps again. And the last one is what we would be concerned with. That is 6/26 of 2013 at 9:45 p.m.
And I am now going to display 27C. Could you describe what is shown here?
Same thing. On the left side, we see the first title of the page. Police powers capabilities on recovering deleted messages from a Samsung phone. And then we see the URL, the internet marker, the location of the address on the website. And then we see the last visited time in Central Daylight Time is 6/26 of 2013 at 9:48 p.m.
And the title, is that something that was searched in Google, or is that the Google return
No,
result?
the title on this one, the reason the title said Google search on the first one is that's how the Google web engine classifies that as a Google search. It knows the user is entering a search there, and it titles that as a Google search. The web page title is usually the title of the article on the web server that was accessed. When we access a site, a lot of people think you're just out in cyber world, but you're actually logging on to somebody's server inside of their company, inside of their business. And this article that was uploaded to this server was named that title by the person who handles their web server there.
Detective Gish, at any point, were you able to locate any images from this incident on Mr. Vandenburg's iPhone?
I was.
And could you describe how you were able to do that?
Well, I knew I couldn't data carve for images on the phone.
And could you explain what that means to data carve?
Sure.
I was going to ask the same question.
Sure. It's sometimes computer forensics and the working with computers seems kind of difficult to understand. I'm going to try to make this simple using a metaphor. Think about a computer and a file, the same thing you would as a book inside of a library. If you walk inside of a library without going to the old card catalog and pulling out the card and searching for the book, you wouldn't know anywhere in the world inside that library where to go to find the book. So when you walk into the library, the first thing you do is you pull the card catalog on the book that you're looking for. And on that card catalog, on that card with the Dewey Decimal System, it lists the book's name, it lists the author of the book, it lists when the book was written, lists the pages, it lists how big the book is, and most importantly, it lists where you need to walk in that library to pull it off of what shelf and what number on that shelf. So having that card, you can easily go over and track using the steps, the road map on that card to pull the book off the shelf. Well, the same thing kind of happens with a computer. When I take a picture, if I was to take a picture in with my phone here of the courtroom, it would save that to one of those squares that we've talked about, right? But we don't know what squares it saves it to. So not only is the picture being saved, each file on a computer or each file on a phone also has a record attached to it, and either an MFT record or an inode record. That's basically its card catalog going with that file. So written on that file, just like a library, it has the title of the picture. It could be image_4003.jpg. It has the date and time that I took the picture. It has how big the picture is. And most importantly, just like the book on the library shelf, it tells the computer what little squares that it's stored in, so whenever I want to access that picture again, just like walking in the library and pulling the book off the shelf, the system on the computer knows what squares to go grab that picture from and pull it up to the user. Now, when files on most systems, we can do something that's called data carving. So earlier I mentioned that when a file is deleted, it's a misnomer. The file's really not deleted. It just lays right back down in those same little squares until we want to recover it, or until it's overwritten. Well, that's easy to do on something other than an iPhone. So a Windows computer, a Mac computer, it's pretty easy to do, Android telephones. And when I say data carve, this is what I mean. This phone here takes an image, and it's called, after I take the image, the file name of this image is ended with .jpg. There's a file, or let me restate that. Whoever's using the same type of phone, Canon camera, whatever in England right now, and they take a picture of whatever they're taking a picture of, that's going to be called a .jpeg, because there's standards that's written into these file types by this governing computer agency. That's how our computers know that when we click on a JPEG, it opens it with Photoshop automatically, or it opens it with Windows Picture Viewer, because it's a .jpeg. Now, a .document could be totally different. Now, what we need to realize is on every JPEG picture that's ever been taken, there is a unique file signature to this. So this JPEG has something very, very unique that a document file or a zip file or a movie file doesn't have. And it's called its file signature. Every file has one, and it's the very first 6 or 7 characters of this file type. So every JPEG that's ever been taken always starts with YOYA. So if we know what that signature is, we don't really need the roadmap of the card to go find the clusters any longer. I can make a keyword that says, go out into all of this deleted area on this computer and find any instance that you can find of YOYA. On a zip file, the file signature is PK. So I would search for PK. On an AVI audio or a video file, it's RIFF. So then I set my exam machine to go data carve in all of this unallocated space, and it pulls out all of these YOYAs, and I know they're pictures. So then my machine, my forensic machine, knows that it's a picture and it's been found. So I've magically found these pictures, not really magically, but I've found these pictures with computer forensics and techniques, not having the roadmap to where I know they are, because that roadmap's been deleted, but I've recovered them with this unique file signature.
And are you able to do that even if the user has deleted the photo?
You can, except for an iPhone.
And so, are you saying you were not able to data carve on the iPhone?
I was not able to data carve because those characters, because I've got to explain this. On an iPhone, we know that on other computers that I've been talking about today, there's 2 parts. There's the file, there's the card that tells us all of the information we need to know where to find it. But on an iPhone, you have those 2 things, but the file also has what's called an encryption key. So it's this encryption key that unlocks this data. Data's all jumbled until the encryption key is engaged, and it unlocks this data. When you delete a file on an iPhone, what happens is the card catalog, the card holder for the file, is kind of deleted and reused. But then this encryption key that unlocks the file is blown completely out. So now instead of having the YOYAs, all of the data is obfuscated. So instead of YOYA, we don't know what it could be. 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. There could be billions and billions of possibilities. And the only thing that would recover that picture is having that encryption key, and you just can't recover that encryption key on an iPhone. So I had to use alternative methods to find images.
So at the outset of your analysis, you know that you're not going to be able to do the same analysis you would do on a computer or an Android phone.
As soon as an iPhone comes in, my mindset changes to how I'm going to recover items that are deleted, such as images, documents, videos, because I can't recover those. They just can't be recovered.
So how is it that you were able to recover any images from this iPhone?
Well, I recovered images. Once I figured out everything that we've explained today, I knew there was one more possibility to possibly recover images, and that was through an application that phones use and computers use, and it's called Thumbnails database. And let me use another metaphor with a Windows computer to explain this. I think we probably all used computers before, and if you're on your desktop on a computer and you have a folder sitting there on top of your desktop and you open that folder, you can right click and you can look at all of these. So let's say there's 100 pictures in there, in this folder. You can right click that folder once you open it, and you can look at those in different views. You can look at them in list view, so it just tells you the file name. You can look at it in details view, so it tells you the file name, when the picture was created, But the third and most important thing that a user can look at these pictures on a Windows machine is in thumbnails view. So you can right-click and all of the pictures that are in there come up as little miniature images, and you can see them all on the screen at one time. And if you've got an old computer and you open up a folder that's got 1,000 pictures in it and you hit thumbnails view, you could really go make yourself a Coke and come back and still watch these things load up on this machine. What that's actually doing is it's creating that image right then. It's creating a miniature thumbnail image, and it's keeping that thumbnail image in a database. Now on a Windows machine, I could right-click all of the pictures and delete all of those pictures, but it doesn't delete that database where that thumbnail was created. And I was thinking, if it works like this on a Windows computer, maybe it'll work like this on this on the iPhone. So it was on January the 3rd, about 2 o'clock in the morning, I started thinking about this and started going to look and do analyzation on Vandenburg's iPhone, and actually found a ThumbsDB database. Actually, there was 2 databases that holds all of these thumbnails. And
let me stop you right there. I believe that you just said that you did this on January 3rd.
Yes, I did.
And it was January of what year?
2013. I'm sorry, July the 3rd. Yeah, it was the day before 4th of July. I remember that.
Okay. And you've just described a thumbnail database. Is the thumbnail picture that is showing up in that database, is that the same, I mean, is that the picture image, the same file?
It's not the same file. It's created. So when you take, as Windows creates this thumbnail, whenever you right-click the folder to view the images in the folder as thumbnails, the iPhone automatically creates the thumbnail as soon as I take a picture. So if I was to take a picture right now of the courtroom, the picture would be saved, my original picture, in camera roll. But what also happens are there's 2 additional pictures that are thumbnails that are created, and they're kept in these databases. So the thumbnails are created in these databases as soon as the camera shutter button is pushed to take the picture. So when the images were deleted, or the gap that I found, when those images were deleted, the thumbnails weren't deleted. Just deleting the image does not delete it out of the thumbnails database. So I was able to recover all of these images that was in that sequence gap that were missing. Although the original image was recovered, the miniature image in the thumbnail was recovered from these databases. And it's a smaller image. It has it has more compression and less resolution, but it's the same image. It's just smaller form factor.
Your Honor, I'm going to ask that the witness be passed an envelope which contains 9 photographs. Defense counsel has already viewed these.
All right.
And they have been pre-marked on the back A through I. Detective Gish, you've just been handed an item. If you can take a look at that and let me know if you recognize those pictures.
I do.
And could you generally describe what are the pictures? Where did you locate those?
These are the thumbnail images that I located off of Brandon Vandenburg's telephone. These are the images that were deleted in that sequence gap, and I located the thumbnail copy of that image.
Your Honor, at this time I would ask that these photographs be entered as the next numbered exhibit
28.
A through I, and I also ask permission to publish these to the jury.
All right.
Detective Gish, I'm going to place the first image on the screen. If you could describe what is shown in this first image.
This is the victim laying face down on carpet. It appears to be outside of one of the dorm rooms or the elevator in Gillette Hall. Her buttocks area is reddened on both sides. Her skirt's been pulled off of her. Her underwear has been removed. She's laying face down. Her top has been pulled up above her to her chest area. And it looks like a plate of food laying there to the left of her.
And I'm now placing the second image on the screen, which is marked as B.
From the surveillance video, I know this is Cory Batey. This is his polka dotted blue shirt and his American flag boxer shorts. We see he's taking his jeans off. See his sock foot down there on the left. There's a water bottle to the right side of the picture. Looks like he's mounting the victim. Her arm is to the right of the picture, laying on the tile floor of Vandenburg's dorm room.
And Detective Gish, I have put up the third image, which is 28C.
Yeah, this is a video thumbnail, and it's just a blurry image. Really can't make out what it is. It's white and black. And we see the reason I know it's a video thumbnail is there's a camera down there on the left and a 4-second timer on the right. Apple not only makes images of pictures when you take them, but if you're taking a video, it takes the first screen, it takes the first frame of that video and creates a thumbnail image of it. And it also puts how long the video is, and then puts the camera on the left. So when you're scrolling through your images on your phone, you would know that's a video.
Detective Gish, this is the fourth image, which is labeled 28D.
This is the victim laying on her back in Vandenburg's dorm room. Her underwear have been removed. Her skirt's been pulled up. Her legs are spread open. Her top has been pulled up above her waist. Her arms, hair are twisted over her body and her face. The bottom of the picture, that's Brandon Banks in the camouflage pants. Appears to be holding a cell phone, taking an image of her. Left hand, something gold on the bottom left of the image, right there.
And the fifth image, which is 28E.
This is a 33-second video clip as well. And on the left side of the picture, we see Tip McKenzie's blue and white tennis shoes right there. And I know that to be Cory Batey. And he's touching the private area of the victim. She's laying down on her stomach. Her legs have been spread open. Her underwear have been removed. Her skirt's pulled up above her waist, and her top's been pulled up.
And the sixth image, which is 28F.
This is a 42-second video clip as well. Shows the victim laying down, kind of on her left side. Her underwear have been pulled down, but they haven't been removed. It looks like her skirt's been pulled up. And she has a bottle inserted into what appears to be her anus.
And ultimately, in your investigation, did you learn anything more about this 42-second video clip?
If I may, I object to the term inserted because no one can, there's no way he can tell.
Appears to be, did you not?
I did say it.
But he used the word inserted. There's no way he can tell if it's inserted or just positioned some other way. So for the record, I object to the term inserted because that's not apparent from the video.
His testimony was it appeared to be, and that's allowable.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective Gish, ultimately, did your investigation, did you learn any more about this particular 42-second video clip?
I recovered it from another device.
The next image, which is 28G.
This is a 7-second video clip. It's the victim laying on the dorm room floor again at Vandenburg dorm there. Her panties have been pulled down below her waist. We see Cory Batey in the blue shirt with his right arm down. Appears to be inserting his finger in one of her orifices. On the right side, also in front of Batey, we see the right hand of Banks and his bracelets that are on, and he appears to be taking a picture or a video with his camera.
And ultimately, did you learn anything else about this video?
That video was recovered too from another device.
And the 8th image, which is 28H.
This was recovered, thumbnail image again, but it's a video clip. It's a 10-second video clip. We see the victim lying down on the ground. Her skirt's been pulled up. I can't tell if her underwear have been removed, but right next to her head is Mr. Batey on his knees with his pants pulled down, exposing his American boxer shorts. And he's got his hands near his groin area. On the left side of the picture, see the camouflage pants of Banks. You can see his shoes down below that video icon there. And then if you look just about where Banks's knees are, that's the doorway of the dorm room. And you can see the blue and white tennis shoe of Jaborian McKenzie in his clothes going up.
And the last image, which is 28I.
This is the victim on the carpet of Gillette Hall. This is in the hallway. We see her left arm there on top of a white piece of paper. Her right arm is twisted over her face. Her hair's laying over her face. Her skirt's pulled up, her top's pulled up. Appears to be the same position of her when I saw Vandenburg taking the video from the surveillance cameras from Gillette Hall.
And ultimately in the investigation, did you learn more about this video file?
I recovered this video file from another device.
Detective Gish, after you located the video thumbnails, what was the next steps in your investigation?
Well, I saw all the other, or not all of the other, I saw other phones being used to take videos or images possibly of her. So Detective Mayo had search warrants for other phones as well, including Batey, Banks, and McKenzie. And I did the same type of examination on those phones as I did with Vandenburg.
Detective Gish, you're being handed an envelope which contains 7 images. They have been pre-marked A through H. Can you take a look at those 7 images and let me know if you recognize them?
These are the thumbnail images from Batey's phone, and I recovered these in the same way as I did from Vandenburg's. The original images had been deleted. I identified an image gap, knowing that the images couldn't be recovered because of the encryption. I went to the thumbnail databases, and these 7 images came from those thumbnail databases off of Batey's phone.
Your Honor, at this time, I would ask that those 7 photographs be entered as the next numbered exhibit.
All right, from 29.
And they will be A through H. I also ask permission to publish these images to the jury.
All right, go ahead.
Detective Gish, I've placed the first image, which is 29A, on the screen. Could you please describe what is shown in this image?
This is the victim laying on the tile floor in the dorm room. It's a 31-second video clip. Her arms are twisted. She's laying on her back. Her underwear have been pulled down to expose her vagina. Her skirt's been pulled up above her waist, and her top's been pulled up somewhat.
And I have now placed the second image on the screen. It is 29B.
This is the victim laying on her back in the dorm room. Her left arm's up above, kind of sitting on her waist. You see her bracelets right there on her left arm and her nail polish. Her top has been pulled up, exposing her breasts. And that's about it.
And the next image, which is 29C.
This is Brandon Banks. We see his left hand there with the bracelet on. This is the victim laying on the ground, a very close-up image of just her legs and her vagina. Banks is using his left thumb to pull open her vagina, spreading it open so he can take a picture with a phone. Appears to be taking a picture with a phone in his right hand.
The next image, which is 29D.
This is the victim, tile floor again in the dorm room. She's laying on her belly. Her skirt's looks like it's been taken off. Her panties appear to have been removed, at least from her thighs down below her knees. There's a handprint, a red handprint on their left buttocks, and some redness on her right buttocks. And I believe that's her hand twisted up behind her by the nail polish that she's wearing.
The next image, which is 29E.
This is a close-up image of the victim appearing to be on the tile floor. It's Cory Batey's hand right there with the white watch on. Her skirt's been removed or pulled up. Can't see any clothing in the picture. It's a close-up image. And he's spreading open her buttocks area, exposing her anus and her vagina.
And Detective Gish, there's kind of a background image that's included in this. Could you explain what that is? And
Yeah, sometimes that happens on thumbnail images. I really can't explain why the coding, when they code these to write that way, but it's kind of like it's overwriting the picture that used to be there. It would be kind of the same thing as recovering a picture from a Windows computer that's been partially overwritten by a new file after it's deleted.
Placing the next image on the screen, which is 29F.
This is the victim laying out in the hallway. You see the carpet. Her skirt's been removed. Her underwear have been removed. Her top's been pulled up. She's laying face down. And she's got redness on both of her buttocks cheeks.
And the last image, which is 29G.
This is an extreme close-up image of the victim's vagina. You can see the piece of carpet right there on the right side. Appears to be out in Gillette Hall again. No underwear on.
Detective Gish, how many other phones did you analyze in these initial stages?
I did Banks as well, and I did McKenzie. Those were the most pressing phones at the time. I did other phones through the whole investigation, but in this time frame around 1st of July, those are the 4 phones that I did.
Detective, I'm asking that you be handed an envelope which contains a set of photographs. They have previously been marked A through N. There are 14 photographs included.
General, these little clasps are coming off, just so you know. You may want to put them in new bags.
Sorry, what?
These little clasps are breaking. You may want to put them in new bags so they don't slip out later.
Thank you. Do you recognize the images?
I do. They're images that I recovered from Brandon Banks' phone, and just like the last two, there was an image gap that I identified of the time frame, and the images had been deleted. Can't recover them because this was an iPhone as well. So my next step was to go back to the thumbnails that we've seen on the last two, and these are images that were recovered from those thumbnails of this time frame.
Your Honor, I would ask that these 14 images be entered as the next numbered exhibit,
All right, number 30.
and they will be A through N, and I ask permission to publish these to the jury.
Okay.
Detective Gish, I've just placed the first image on the screen. Could you please describe what is shown?
This is the victim laying in the dorm floor. Her arms are twisted. She's laying on her belly. Skirt's been pulled up, her top's been pulled up, but not removed. On the left side, we see Cory Batey has his blue jeans on that are pulled down, exposing his boxer shorts, his polka dotted shirt there. And he's got his hands down next to his groin region, his belt buckle area.
The next image, which is 30B.
This is a close-up image of the victim. You can see on the right side of her screen her underwear has been kind of pulled down. Her buttocks is being spread open to expose her vagina and her anus. It's a really close-up image of both of those. And there's a black hand that's touching her anus.
And the next image, which is 30C.
This is the victim. I think she's laying on her back here, and her underwear have been pulled down somewhat, exposing her vagina. And there's a black hand appears to be touching her vagina area.
And 30D is the next image, which is shown. If you could describe this image.
Yes. I don't see bracelets on that right hand, so it appears to be Cory Batey. And it's the victim laying face down with her underwear being pulled down. Her skirt's been kind of pulled up. Her arms are twisted in front of her. And it appears he's got his finger inserted in her anus.
And the next image, which is 30E.
This is the victim laying down on the tile floor, face down. Her underwear have been removed. Her skirt's been pulled up above her waist, and her top's been pulled up. The top of the picture, we see Cory Batey is in his sock feet. His right knee is resting on a red and white towel, maybe. And his right hand is kind of looks like in front of her head. He's got his weight kind of on his right hand. He appears to be squatting on his right knee and his right arm.
And the next image, which is 30F.
This is a very close-up image, possibly of the victim again. But you can't identify anything except for a piece of her leg, the top portion of her leg, and a water bottle where her legs come together. And it's an 11-second video clip on the tile floor.
And the next image, which is 30G.
This is the victim, a very close-up image of her vagina and a black hand spreading open her vagina.
And the next image, that is 30H.
Same as I described. It's a very close-up image of the victim's vagina. This one shows her anus and a black hand spreading open her vagina.
And the next image, which is 30I.
This is again a close-up image of the victim's vagina with a black hand on the right side spreading it open.
And the next image, which is 30J.
This is a very close-up image, kind of like in the scene that we've seen, of the victim's vagina with a black hand on the right side spreading her open.
The next image, which is 30K.
This is the victim laying on her back on the tile floor. Her eyes are closed. Her face appears to be glossy. Her arm looks like you see the bracelets right there. Her arm, left arm looks to be kind of laying on top of her shoulder. She has her top on.
And the next image, which is 30L.
This is the victim laying on tile floor again, on her back. Her top's been pulled up, exposing her breasts, and some type of white cloth or pillow on top of her head.
And the next image, which is 30M.
This is Cory Batey. The victim's laying down. Her skirt's been removed. Her panties appear to be removed. She's laying on her back. You can see her top is pulled up. Mr. Batey doesn't have any pants on other than his boxer shorts, which are pulled down. It appears his shirt's off, and his anus is sitting on top of her face. He's squatting on top of her. On the left side of the picture, you see Jaborian McKenzie shoes and his shorts right there, identified from the surveillance video. And Batey is giving the middle finger to McKenzie while he's committing this act.
And the next image, which is 30N.
Much like the same image we just saw, but it's more close up. We only see the victim's waist up to her shoulder. Batey again squatting on her face in his sock feet. You see his left arm there holding.
He's not using the word appears. He's
Okay.
moving that be stricken.
All right, it will be stricken. Would you
Sure.
answer the question again?
Sure. Victim laying down on the tile floor. Mr. Batey in his sock feet. He's leaned back on his left arm. We see a white watch right there. it appears his underwear have been pulled down and that his anus is on the victim's face.
Detective Gish, you previously testified that you also analyzed Mr. McKenzie's iPhone. Can you describe what, if anything, you found related to photos or videos on Mr. McKenzie's iPhone?
I did. I analyzed McKenzie's iPhone. I did not find any images allocated or deleted, of course being the iPhone, and I did not find any thumbnails in the databases. It had the thumbnail database, and I parsed and analyzed those databases just like the other three, but there were no thumbnails in there of this incident.
And again, you performed the same analysis that you performed on the 3 phones that you just testified about, is that correct?
Yes.
And at this time, did you analyze any other devices kind of at that time in the investigation before the investigation moved forward?
I did.
And could you generally describe, were there other phones that you analyzed?
There were some other phones that I analyzed. I analyzed a phone from a person named Austin Carter Samuels. I analyzed a phone from Chris Boyd. I analyzed a phone from a person named Mark Prelude. I analyzed the victim's phone, and I analyzed a MacBook laptop that belonged to Brandon Vandenburg. Maybe more, but those are the ones that I can remember.
And at this time, I would ask that Detective Gish be handed previously entered exhibit, I believe it's number 9, the laptop. Do you recognize the item that's just been handed to you?
Yeah, this is the laptop that Detective Mayo gave to me from Brandon Vandenburg under a search warrant. It's a MacBook Pro laptop, and I did remove the hard drive and examine the data on the hard drive.
And when you examine the data on the hard drive of that computer, could you describe what specifically were you looking for in your initial search?
Well, after I finished the phones, I knew there were images. I mean, we just saw the images. So there was images taken inside that dorm room. And I knew that there had been images taken from Vandenburg's phone. From the video icons, I knew there were videos taken from Vandenburg's phone. So the next step in my investigation was to determine if Vandenburg had possibly plugged that phone, his iPhone, into the computer, where the phone would sync with the computer and maybe download the images from the phone to the computer, because that's possible. That's the way they're married to each other. So I started the investigation mainly to look for that, and I did not find any evidence of these images or videos that Vandenburg had taken on the computer.
What, if anything, did you find on the computer that was related to the timeline of this incident?
Well, once I didn't have any pictures, and I knew there wasn't any pictures taken, I started looking at other artifacts that would be left behind of computer usage. Because anytime we use computers, there's a good possibility there's an artifact left behind that identifies when the computer was used. So just like the phone on the internet history that we saw earlier of the Google searches about the police recovering, can they recover data, I started searching the internet history on Vandenburg's computer, specifically around this time frame on 6/23 of 2013, when I saw them enter the room at 2:38 in the morning on the surveillance video, and then when they left the room at about 3:11 a.m. So I had about 32, 33 minutes right there that I was really concerned with to see if the computer was used for any type of furtherance of this crime. And when I started analyzing the computer and the internet history, I found that during this time frame, several pornography sites had been accessed on this computer. There's an artifact left behind with the Safari browser, and Safari is proprietary to Apple, kind of like Internet Explorer is proprietary to Windows. And it's called web page previews. So although it wasn't an internet history, it was still internet history because Apple within Safari not only keeps the text that we saw up here earlier, it also keeps a snapshot of the web page that you visited. That way when you go back into your browser, instead of just seeing, you go to your bookmarks or your recently used places, a lot of times you go there and it's just a text file. Hey, Chad went to Fox News, you can go right back here and that sort of thing. But Apple, being very progressive, they give the user a snapshot of the actual web page that you viewed in the past. So that's what I recovered. Pornography web page previews during this time frame.
I'm going to ask that this witness be handed a 4-page document. It's been pre-marked A through D. Detective Gish, if you can take a look at that and let me know if you recognize it.
Yes, these are 4 of the web page previews that I recovered from that laptop.
Your Honor, at this time I would ask that these documents be entered as the next numbered exhibit.
Number 31, I believe.
And they will be A through D. And I also request permission to publish these images to the jury.
All right.
Detective Gish, I've just put an image on the screen. If you could describe what is shown here. And this is for the record 31A.
Is there any way to blow it up? Do I have it over here?
Yeah, the 4, she had, well, give them those 4.
I'm sorry, old eyes. Okay, I'm looking at what you're looking at there now. Yeah, this is a web page preview. At the top, you see name in that big, long, really arbitrary number that starts with, or in letters. It actually looks like it's hexadecimal. It starts with BED, and then we see .png. That is the name of this picture. So instead of a JPEG, Apple uses the PNG format to take a snapshot of this web page that you view. This is what it's arbitrarily named. I don't know how they come up with the naming scheme. But then on the second line, we see full path. And then we see, if you follow full path all the way down through the second, it says one customer. Now this is the path of where I located it. So basically a path is a series of folders that you can go through and access, a structure of folders. And this was located at, his hard drive was named number 1 customer, Apple HD. And it was in the users folder, a user's name named Rod Perez, library, caches, com.apple.safari, web page previews. Now these are all default. Apple names these folders whenever the operating system is installed. This is just where it stores it. And then you can see the name of the picture. And then down below, we see the timestamp, which is very important. This actual web page preview, this PNG file, was created by the operating system. The user didn't create this. When the user accessed the website, the system created this picture and stored it there for basically user convenience if he ever wanted to go back. So although he accessed the page, this is the artifact left behind showing that he accessed the page. And then we can see it was accessed on 6/23/2013 at 2:47 a.m.
And Detective Gish, The image that appears on the screen, is that the exact image that you located on the laptop?
No, it was pornography, but it's pornography under there, trust me. We just didn't want to have to show pornography to the jurors if we didn't have to.
You're talking about the blacked out portion.
Yes, sir. Over on the left side, you'll see when we start looking through all of these, the picture is kind of blacked out, but it's blacked out because that was pornography. And if I remember correctly, it was all females. So these are just web pages of pornography that were accessed. Thank you, Judge.
And the next image, which is, I believe it is 31B.
It's the same thing. We see it's stored at the same page under the Rod Perez user account PNG file, and it was created on 6/23 of 2013 at 2:53 a.m. And the name of the site, I mean, that's the name of the site that was accessed at the top, xnxx.com. And again, those black areas are, it's just pornography that we've hidden.
And the next image, which is 31C.
Another web page that was visited on 6/23 of 2013 at 2:53 a.m. It's actually the same website, xnxx.com.
And the fourth image, which is 31D.
Another web page that was visited, and it was visited from Vandenburg's laptop from the Rod Perez account on 6/23/13 at 2:53 in the morning.
Detective Gish, at this point in the investigation, you've testified about the thumbnail images that you located. What is kind of the next event or the next progression of your investigation?
Well, I think it's important to go back to the timeline that I identified on Vandenburg's phone when I first took the witness stand, and I explained to you that I didn't find any pictures. But during this timeline, and this was even before I found the thumbnails, but I had recovered and found evidence of multiple references to rape. I found evidence of phone calls made to Joey Quizno, Miles Finley, Mac Prelude, Cory Batey, Dylan Vanderwall, and I think even Chris Boyd. So there were phone calls made within this timeline as well. So the next step in the investigation was to, and the FaceTime references. So I had, by the content of what I was reading at the time through iMessage data, I knew that there was a good possibility that these videos could have been sent to other individuals by Mr. Vandenburg. So immediately we started, myself and Detective Mayo and Detective Sergeant Mike Shreve immediately tried to identify the people who we thought were sent these videos. And that was individuals by the name of Miles Finley and Joey Quizno. We identified that they did have a relationship with Vandenburg, and that both of these individuals lived in his hometown in Palm Desert, California. So after consideration and talking to command staff and ultimately Chief Steve Anderson, it was decided that we were going to hustle out there as quick as we could to at least try to interview these two individuals, and knowing that images or videos were probably sent, to try to do more search warrants out there to see if we could recover the devices from Mr. Finley and Mr. Quizno from where these images were sent to.
And did you ultimately go out to California?
We did go to California. We left here on, myself and Detective Mayo left Nashville on July the 23rd. Had a big meeting with detectives from Riverside County Police Department, near Los Angeles. And they assisted
Let me
us.
stop you for just a moment. We're gonna have to do something a little unusual. We're gonna pick up right at that point, going to California, but we're gonna stop. I'm gonna have to take a witness out of order, but we're gonna take a 10-minute break first, and then I'll explain to you about this witness that we're taking out of order, and then Detective Gish, good gracious, will be coming back to finish his testimony, okay? 10-minute break.
Thanks,
All
Judge.
rise.
Please. Yeah.
Judge, let's ask a question. Is your Honor intended? I would think that probably the next witness will take a while where
Yeah, I think you'll be safe.
In the morning.
Yeah. You probably need a break anyway.
That's tough. Thanks, Judge.
All right.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Court will be in a 10-minute recess.
Do what? No, I'll just say. Yeah. That's okay. That's okay. I believe me, I needed it right there. That's just tough having to scrap it.